Hello, everyone. Thanks, Gerard, for joining us today. We're super excited as we honor Hispanic and Latinx Heritage Month and honor the folks in our campus community who share these identities. So we would like to get started. If you could please tell us a little bit about how you identify and your background as well as your connection to Suffolk University.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. So I identify as a first generation um, Cuban American Latino white male. In terms of my personal family background, so my dad is from Spain. That's where he was born. His family moved to Cuba in the 1940s, so right after the Spanish Civil War. And my mom was born and raised in Cuba. So they both lived there until their early 30s. And then they came to the United States in 1969 and 1970 as part of the Freedom Flights, which was a US sponsored airlift of Cuban refugees to the United States. So that was in the late 60s, early 70s. I think it's actually still the largest airborne refugee operation in US history. And they came to Lawrence, Massachusetts. That's where they settled and that's where they met. And they worked at a shoe factory and various other jobs in Lawrence. And that's where I was born. That's where I was raised. Um, and Lawrence has changed a lot. There's no shoe factories anymore. But it's still very much a gateway city. So home to lots of different immigrant groups, very diverse. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's the 90,000 or so residents, 60% identify as non-white. So very rich in terms of diversity, different cultures. And that's where I grew up. I went to college in Vermont at Middlebury College. And then I started working in higher education. So I started my professional career at the College of the Holy Cross, working in undergrad admissions. Did that for a few years. Then I went to Brandeis University. I worked there for 6 years in graduate admissions. And then I came to Suffolk in 2013. I worked with our satellite campus that we had in Lawrence, actually. So kind of going back home was a neat experience. And I managed that program for a few years. And then I came to the main campus in 2018, I believe. And I currently work as the director of MS STEM and quantitative programs at the Sawyer Business School. So those are our programs our specialized master's degrees. So they're masters in business analytics, masters of science in finance, master of science in accounting, and master of science in marketing. That's a long answer, but I think
No, a
that gives a
valid
good
one
snapshot.
because we get to know a little bit about your background and your connection to Suffolk University. Because sometimes I think that we are all doing the work that we've been hired to do, but there's so much richness in our campus community that we sometimes don't pause to learn about this richness. So this gives us the opportunity. So thank you for sharing that. So this leads me to my question on the Heritage Month. So as we're celebrating the Hispanic Heritage Month, what does this Heritage Month mean to you, and does it hold any significance?
Sure, I think it holds a lot of significance. I think especially working at a university, I think there's always lots of great events and opportunities to highlight a lot of the contributions that people from the Latinx community have made, and to really recognize, lots of different people across lots of different industries. So I think beyond that, what I always look forward to is really to understand the differences within the Latinx community. Obviously, my experiences are going to be very different than someone else's. So learning about the different um, traditions, languages, foods, customs of students or people from different, Central American countries, Latin American countries, South American countries. So that's one of my big sort of takeaways or what I look forward to. And I hope other people do too, right? And sometimes it's sort of lumped together as sort of a Hispanic or Latinx celebration, but there's lots of differences and uniquenesses between the different cultures. So that's really what I look forward to.
I appreciate that. Can you tell us if or how your racial and cultural identity has encouraged and empowered you, especially in your line of work?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think early on in my career, that would have been a very hard question for me to answer. So I think when I think back to college and in the early years in my career, I think I had a hard time fitting in. Not from, I made friends easily and had a good rapport with my coworkers, but really sort of straddling, two different worlds, right? On the one hand, I'm a white male, and I'm sure I've been afforded certain privileges. On the other hand, I don't know that I always felt I had a lot in common with some of my white colleagues. Certainly from a socioeconomic perspective, growing up in parents who didn't make a lot of money. My dad didn't go to college. My mom didn't go to high school. Um, my first language was Spanish. I still speak Spanish with my parents today. We don't speak English. So I certainly feel like I didn't have that much in common with a lot of my colleagues. So I think fitting in was challenging at first, and sometimes when you feel like you don't fit in, you kind of want to blend in, right? As I've progressed through my career, as I've gotten older, um, what's become really important to me is to look for opportunities to really, use my role, what influence I may have, um, to make it, even if it's a small difference, right? So maybe about 14 years ago, I was introduced to Alpha Boston. So I've had a chance to work closely with them over the past, 14 years. Um, we had an opening for staff advisor to our Alpha student club here at Suffolk. I jumped on that. I really wanted to get involved with them. Um, and other opportunities too, like, I've tried to get involved with Connect the Dots. So you may be familiar with them, right? So it's not necessarily a group that works with our Latinx community, but first generation college students. So, serving as a mentor to some of our undergraduate students. So I would say, I've really looked proactively for those types of opportunities where, again, I think early in my career, that wasn't necessarily the case. I think, again, just trying to find myself or establish myself. But those are things that have become really important to me as I've progressed in my career and I've moved more into leadership type of positions.
Absolutely. I think this, how everybody sort of like progresses in their cultural acceptance, identities are different. And to hear how you have made sense and meaning of yours is impactful, because I think that there are students right now who may be going through the same or similar process, and they could hear this and go, okay, it's not just me. And I think that is one of the reasons why we appreciate when other folks share their stories with us, and to know who in our community, who on our campus share similar identities or identities that we appreciate as well. So thinking about the workplace or the industry, so you're in higher ed, we're in higher education. Um, do you think that there's some changes that have happened, or are there changes that you would like to see that would improve the work experience or representation of Hispanic or Latinx people?
Sure. I definitely think there have been changes. So early in my career, I don't remember hearing about employee resource groups. So that's something I've tried to get involved with. We have Nuestro, of course, here at Suffolk.
Mhm.
So I'm excited about participating in that resource group. So I think the university's done a nice job of that. I think generally speaking, I think what we can do is maybe provide more external opportunities to perhaps network with colleagues outside of Suffolk. So that certainly could be an area of improvement. Um, but I think generally speaking, I feel there's much more support than there was again when I started. I'm dating myself here, 24 years ago. Um, so yeah, I think we've come a long way, but I still think there's more that can be done.
Cool. Can you tell us a little bit about, I know you shared this a little at the beginning, but like, what does the role of director of MSM and quantitative programming do at Suffolk?
Sure. I work across those four programs that I mentioned earlier, or MSBA, MSF, MSA, and MSM. So part of my job is program management. So sort of the day-to-day management of those four programs. Student advising. So I work with students across those four programs, help them with class registration, choosing electives, career conversations, directing them to your office, of course, for more in-depth career conversations.
Thank you.
Um, Event management, of course. We host a lot of events within the graduate programs office. There's some student recruitment aspect to my job as well, meeting with admitted students, prospective students, and some marketing. So a little bit of everything.
That's really cool. So what would you say is the most exciting or rewarding aspect of your work as a leader in the STEM education here? Or just being a leader in the space?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of exciting things going on in STEM. And sometimes people hear the word STEM and it sounds like a scary word. Or they think of science and engineering, and that's one part of STEM, right? But from a business education sort of scope, I think there's a lot of exciting things going on. It's an ever-changing sort of, we talk about analytics, it's an ever-changing sort of field, right? And you think about all the exciting things going on with machine learning and artificial intelligence. There's so many opportunities, and every organization is looking for people who have some acumen when it comes to programming languages or understanding how to read data and how to make decisions from data. So there's a lot of innovation. I think it's an exciting field to be in. And I think personally, I think one of the more rewarding things for me is, working with a lot of students who come in and have a curiosity about, analytics or one of our STEM programs, but they're a little hesitant. They're not sure. Maybe they lack the confidence. And then really seeing them, flourish in the program, learn new skills, and then go on to get great jobs and have successful careers. So yeah, I think it's certainly an exciting and rewarding field, and certainly for me, again, it's all about the students, right? So watching their success within those fields.
Absolutely. I always say, if you're working in higher ed, you've got to love students.
Yep.
Yeah. Can you tell us maybe a who or what was more helpful in your professional success?
Who or what?
Yes.
I've been very lucky in that I've had some really great managers, current manager included. Um, that really, I don't think I ever intentionally said, I'm going to go find a mentor. Maybe I should have, right? But that wasn't my approach. So it kind of just happened, I would say, organically for me. I've had, again, managers who I think took a real strong interest in me, not just my development in in my specific role, but my overall development. And really believed in me and pushed me. I think I'm someone who, again, especially early in my career, and some of this is cultural, I think, and how I was brought up. Again, as a child of immigrants, work hard, keep your head down, right? And you'll get far. And the working hard part is important, but the keeping your head down, you got to speak up and you have to learn how to advocate for yourself. And that's something that I didn't know how to do. So that's something specific that I feel, those people that I worked for, the managers that I've had, really encouraged me to do and really challenged me to do in some cases. And that's been to my benefit. So I would say, I've been lucky. I've had some really good managers who believed in me, who encouraged me, and that makes a huge difference in terms of job satisfaction and career progression, right? So, yeah. So again, some of it's just been kind of organically and sort of lucking out, I guess. But also, I think I made an effort to to have a relationship with them, right? And ask them questions, not just about my role, but about the industry and pick their brain on certain things. So yeah, so I would say I've been very fortunate to have some very supportive managers in my career.
All right. So you said something about mentorship and knowing the work that we do, we value mentorship as a part of our professional relationship and career success. Would you say, how would you advise a current student on how to find mentorship, how to find successful mentors, how to be a successful mentee? Because I think sometimes people think that if I am not in a formal program, then I don't have a mentor, whereby most of the time, many of us find mentors not in a formal program. So what advice would you give to a student, and maybe using a personal example if you have any?
Yeah, well, I think a mentor doesn't necessarily have to be someone you report to or a faculty member. It can be peer-to-peer mentorship, right? Or people, other students, right? Maybe they're a year ahead of you or in your same cohort. So I think first, there's lots of people who could be mentors, right? So I think seeking out people who maybe you respect, people who maybe are similar to you in some way. But again, thinking beyond just a professor, right? It could be a staff member. Again, there could be opportunities to get involved in student clubs, and there could be mentorship opportunities there. And would you ask for a specific example?
If you have any.
Aside from the ones I already gave you with regards to my managers, I mean, I have tried to get involved with other groups. So I used to, when I worked in admissions, I belonged to a group of admissions counselors from other universities, and I was able to really sort of beyond just kind of work talk, really develop some good relationships there when it came to kind of career advice as well. So again, that could be an example of kind of more of an external opportunity, right? Getting involved with a professional development group, those kinds of things.
Thank you. What advice would you give to students, especially those from underrepresented communities, those from Hispanic or Latinx communities, who aspire to leadership roles in STEM and business?
Yeah, well, like I said before, STEM's not scary. But I think there's lots of opportunities, right? And I think a lot of people are looking for people who are motivated and intelligent, work hard. Um, so there's lots of opportunities in the STEM fields. Uh, I- I think some of what we've already talked about, look for people to connect with, whether it's a professor or other classmates, someone you look up to, right? And get to know them and their experiences in the field, right? So again, the power of networking and building those close relationships, I would say is important. And you know, believe in yourself that you have, you know, the ability to succeed. You know, I think if you have the interest and the passion, yeah, there's lots of opportunities for you within the STEM fields.
Mm. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Where to start? Um, I talked about sort of speaking up, right, and advocating for yourself. So that's certainly a big piece of advice I would have. Well, I'll share a quick story. So early in my career, when I worked at Holy Cross, so this was an entry-level position. We would have a vendor, so this external organization that would come and bring 50 to 60 prospective students to visit Holy Cross. And you know, the leader of that organization wasn't there to meet with me. He was there to meet with our director and so forth. But I was tasked with sort of just helping him out, supporting, you know, if they needed anything. So I did that a couple of times. You know, I interacted with him maybe, you know, 20, 30 minutes here or there. Not much at all. Um, and fast forward 2 years later, I'm on the T. I just finished my 1 year full-time graduate program, so I'm looking for a job. And I run into him on the T, and he comes up to me and he says, "Are you Gerard?" And I was like, "Yeah, do you remember me?" And I was like, "I sure do." And we started chatting, and you know, he told me that he's at this new organization in Boston, and he has an opening, and I should apply. And I did, and I got the job. And to me, it's something I always remember. It was a very powerful moment. You know, this is someone I didn't know very well, but it was an important reminder to me that first impressions make a huge difference in being helpful. So, you know, that's something that stuck with me for a long time. It's something I've always remembered. So that would be, you know, I know sometimes we overuse that expression, but I think, you know, having a really positive first impression, sometimes you don't have a lot of time to make that impression, is really, really important. So that's one piece of advice I would have is be aware of the importance of first impressions as it relates to, you know, your professional career.
Well, I want to say thank you again for sharing your story with us, for connecting with us, and for celebrating this Heritage Month. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
Thank you for the time. I enjoyed the conversation, and yeah, happy to chat again down the line.
All right, well, thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you on campus.
Okay, take care.